Ambassador Evelyn Kim stood at the grand observation window of Harmony Station, gazing into the endless velvet sea where stars pulse like the ancient heartbeat of the universe. Earth glowed faintly in the distance, a delicate swirl of blue and green, serene and beautiful, a cradle of legends. Beyond the cold glass, space stretched without boundary, but Evelyn's focus was not on its infinite mysteries. It was on the transmission she had just received. She adjusted the silver piping on her navy blue uniform, smoothing the creases as if it could somehow prepare her for what was to come. The thin metallic sheen of the Galactic Council's sigil shimmered on her shoulder, a symbol that carried both respect and resentment among the gathered races. She was Earth's sole official ambassador, the face of humanity in a council that for 3,000 years had been content to think of humans as clever, adaptable, but ultimately unimpressive among the myriad civilizations. The chiming sound of an incoming priority transmission broke her reverie. From the ceiling, a small orb of polished silver drifted down. Jin, her personal AI companion, its gentle glow pulsing with the urgency of the message. Ambassador, Jin said, voice soft yet insistent, priority communication from the Galactic Council. Supreme Commander Krall is requesting direct transmission. Evelyn's heartbeat quickened. Supreme Commander Krall, leader of the Tekran Dominion, was a name spoken with dread even in the most secure human enclaves. His reputation for ruthlessness had not dimmed with centuries. She nodded once, signaling Jin to accept. The great screen across the chamber flickered to life, illuminating the darkened room with the stark silver light of the Council's central hall. Supreme Commander Krall loomed on the display, his insectoid body an imposing structure of chitin and muscle, gleaming under the sterile council lights. His mandibles clicked sharply as his four compound eyes reflected 1,000 fractured stars. Ambassador Kim, the translator AI, rendered his speech into the common galactic tongue, smoothing over the harshness of his native hisses and clicks. The facade ends today. Humanity's charade of parody is no longer tolerated. Evelyn kept her expression neutral, though inside she could feel the long-simmering anticipation rising. Greetings, Supreme Commander, she said with the calmness born of rigorous training. I trust your communications are urgent. Krall's mandibles flared in a display of dominance. The 3,000-year peace has ended. Your species has overstepped its bounds. The colonization of the Epsilon sector violates treaties your forebears swore to uphold. Your refusal to acknowledge Tekran supremacy leaves us no choice. The words were almost theatrical, rehearsed. The council chamber behind Krall was filled with alien representatives watching silently, crystalline beings, multi-limbed serpentine forms, gaseous intellects contained in mechanical suits. All witnessed this. Evelyn let the Supreme Commander speak, knowing patience was a weapon of its own. She reached for her antique coffee cup, a relic of old Earth, battered but cherished. She sipped slowly, deliberately, provoking a twitch of irritation from Krall, whose race despised casual displays in formal moments. You will prepare for annihilation, Krall declared. Soft murmurs rippled through the council chamber. Evelyn smiled thinly. And what is the council's stance on this? Declaration? Krall's claws clicked in derision. The council has been informed as a courtesy. This is between the Tekran Dominion and your primitive species. Jean's glow pulsed a soft blue beside her ear, silent and waiting. Evelyn barely needed the prompt. The protocols had been prepared centuries ago, coded into every serious human institution. She spoke calmly, firmly. Tell the Supreme Commander, she said to Jin, that we accept his declaration of war. The response was immediate. Shock rippled across the transmission. Krall himself seemed momentarily stunned, his compound eyes shifting color in a display of confusion. You accept, he hissed. Yes, Evelyn confirmed with a nod. Placing her coffee cup down with a soft clink. Humanity accepts. A pulse of energy traveled invisibly through human networks across the galaxy at that exact moment. Every device connected to the human communication web received the simple message. Protocol Pandora, active. Remain calm. Continue normal activities. On Earth, laughter broke out in coffee shops. On Mars, professors paused lectures to exchange knowing smiles with their students. In the mining colonies of the Kuiper Belt, grizzled engineers chuckled quietly. Children in orbital habitats clapped their hands, having been taught for generations that the activation would someday come, and that it would be something to celebrate, not fear. It was the moment when the mask would be lifted. For 3,000 years, humanity had presented itself as moderately advanced, capable but unremarkable among the stellar powers. It was an elaborate ruse maintained across dozens of systems. Humanity had deliberately hidden its true nature behind layers of controlled technological regression, false data, and careful diplomatic humility. Now, with Protocol Pandora triggered, the illusion would end, and the galaxy would see the truth of what humanity had become. Back on Harmony Station, Evelyn leaned forward slightly, her eyes locked with Krall's. Inform your forces, Supreme Commander, she said softly, each word like a blade sliding into place. We will be ready to receive them. Without another word, she signaled Jin to terminate the transmission. The screen flickered off, leaving only the reflected starlight and Evelyn's quiet, knowing smile. Below her feet, deep within Earth's systems and far-flung colonies, ancient defenses, dormant for millennia, awakened. Across distant systems, the hidden arsenals of mankind stirred, weapons and ships of such power that even the oldest races of the galaxy could not have conceived their existence. And far beyond the visible stars, something even older, something that had waited in the cold silence of interstellar space, began to open its eyes. Humanity had never been defeated. It had simply been waiting. The fleet of the Tekran Dominion emerged from hyperspace with the slow, deliberate menace of an executioner's blade descending. Over 1,000 ships, battleships, carriers, escort destroyers unfurled their formation in the cold dark at the edge of the Sol system. From a distance, they resembled a swarm of living metal, each hull gleaming with the dull sheen of bioengineered alloys that absorbed radiation and light alike. At the heart of the fleet, aboard the flagship Inevitable Dominance, Admiral Mork stood surveying the tactical displays. His towering form, armored in layers of chitin reinforced by centuries of genetic perfection, exuded the silent confidence of a species that had never lost a war it chose to fight. "Status report," Mork commanded, his voice a series of resonant clicks and hisses. His second-in-command, a smaller Tekran with black-rimmed compound eyes, replied crisply. "All vessels have arrived in position, Admiral. No signs of human military mobilization. Orbital defenses around Earth are minimal." Mork allowed himself a flicker of amusement. The intelligence reports had been correct. Despite 3 days' warning after the declaration of war, the humans had made no real preparations. Their orbital platforms were ancient relics, poorly maintained. Their visible fleet around Earth consisted of a handful of outdated frigates and civilian vessels, hardly a force worth considering. "Proceed with Formation Alpha 7, Mork ordered. "Bring the fleet into bombardment range. I want Earth's surface scoured clean within the hour." The order relayed across the fleet, and the mighty warships moved forward with the grace of seasoned predators. Weapon systems powered up. Fusion cannons, hyperkinetic railguns, gravitic torpedoes, the best the Tekran had ever engineered. Across the bridge, crew members worked with mechanical precision, preparing to unleash destruction on a scale unseen for millennia. Then, a disturbance. "Admiral," the sensor officer snapped, antennae twitching with alarm. "Something is wrong." Mork turned sharply. "Report." The officer fumbled for words. "Earth." "Admiral." It's gone." A deathly silence fell over the bridge. "What nonsense is this?" Mork growled. "Check your instruments." "Already verified, Admiral. The moon remains in orbit, but Earth itself is missing. No mass readings, no gravity well, no thermal signature." Mork stormed to the main viewing screen. Where Earth should have been, vibrant, beautiful Earth, there was only empty space, with the moon drifting, confused, in a lopsided orbit. "This is impossible," Mork whispered. "Admiral," another officer shouted. "New readings. Anomalous energy signatures detected throughout the fleet. Unknown origin." Before Mork could issue a command, a point of light appeared in the center of the bridge, a swirling, ethereal sphere of impossible complexity, shifting through colors and patterns that defied understanding. It expanded, forming into the image of a human woman. She was not armed, nor armored. She wore a simple dark uniform with no visible insignia. Her brown hair floated slightly, as if under some unseen gravitational field. Her expression was calm, almost curious. "Greetings," she said, her voice resonating unnaturally in the air. "Welcome to Sol." Mork bared his mandibles. "Identify yourself, human." The woman smiled slightly. "I am Commander Unisong of the Earth Defense Force." "This is an act of cowardice." Mork roared, struggling to maintain his composure. "Where is your planet? What trickery is this?" Commander Song tilted her head, as if amused by the outburst. "Earth has been relocated for safety. You are currently suspended within a gravitic fold, a temporal bubble where time flows differently than outside. For us, this conversation is taking place in real time. For the rest of the galaxy, less than a second has passed since your arrival." As if to demonstrate, she gestured to the bridge window. Outside, the stars no longer twinkled. They hung frozen, motionless. A small meteorite, no larger than a grain of sand, hovered motionless inches away from one of the ship's windows. Disbelief rippled across the Tekran crew. "This violates every known law of physics," Mork snarled. Song shrugged lightly. "Only the physics you know." Behind her, holographic displays bloomed into existence, projections of human cities floating in strange dimensions, Dyson swarms encasing entire stars, interstellar manufacturing complexes the size of moons. The technology on display was so far beyond Tekran understanding it might as well have been magic. "We prepared for you," Song said simply. "We have prepared for this moment for 3,000 years." Mork bellowed, "Enough of this. You cannot defeat 1,000 warships by hiding behind illusions." Song's smile faded. Her next words were delivered with the weight of cold certainty. "You misunderstand, Admiral. We are not hiding. We are watching." At that moment, Across the entire Techran fleet, alarms blared. Engine outputs dropped to zero. Weapon systems reported critical failures. Hull integrity monitors began to flash red. Communications channels were flooded with meaningless static. On the flagship's tactical display, strange icons appeared, hundreds of them, surrounding the Techran fleet at impossible speeds, moving faster than even their sensors could track. Unknown vessels, the sensor officer cried. Surrounding us. No energy signatures detectable, configuration not recognizable. Mork stared at the screen, struggling to comprehend. Then Song spoke again, voice gentle but unyielding. Return to your space, Admiral. Leave. You are outmatched. For the first time in his career, Admiral Mork felt true fear, a primal, gut-wrenching terror not just of death, but of irrelevance. And deep inside, he realized the truth. The humans had not simply prepared for war. They had evolved beyond it. Admiral Mork stood frozen, his forearms gripping the command rail so tightly that the metal creaked beneath his claws. Around him, the bridge crew scrambled to make sense of the impossible situation, but their efforts were as useless as insects caught in a storm. Multiple systems offline, the engineering officer stammered. Weapons disabled. Propulsion suppressed. Our reactor output. Admiral, it's being siphoned. Mork's eyes locked onto the floating figure of Commander Song. She hadn't moved, hadn't blinked. She was simply watching. This was not a bluff. This was not a trick. This was reality. Admiral, said the communications officer, his voice trembling, all attempts to send distress signals have failed. Our quantum entanglement nodes, they're isolated. Severed. Isolation at the quantum level was theoretically impossible according to Techran science. Yet the impossible was happening all around them. Admiral Mork, Song spoke again, her tone almost sympathetic. Your fleet is caught in a localized zero-flow continuum. A design perfected during our 2nd century of interstellar engineering. She made a small gesture, and the holographic projection shifted. Now the Techran officers saw vast armadas of human ships stationed around Earth's new location, each vessel different from any known configuration, ships built of metamaterials that changed structure in real time, carriers larger than moons. Battleships shaped like living creatures forged of starlight and quantum fields. They moved not in orderly formations, but in patterns resembling the living fractal flows of an evolving mind. This is Earth's true military presence, Song said. Our peaceful facade was necessary. We needed to ensure that when we revealed ourselves, we would do so from a position of absolute superiority, not to dominate, but to deter. Mork's mind reeled. If even a fraction of this display was real, the Techran Dominion would not merely lose this war, it would cease to exist. Still, pride and instinct battled within him. You claim to seek peace, he hissed, but you humiliate us with this demonstration. Song's eyes grew harder, colder. Humiliation was not our goal. Your invasion was. You came here to exterminate us, to erase us. We simply choose to survive. The hologram shifted again. Now Mork and his officers saw images not of human weapons, but of colonies, universities, art, architecture, agriculture blooming across barren worlds. Systems once deemed lifeless, now teeming with life. You have spent centuries building engines of war, Song continued, while we built engines of creation. You measured your strength by the number of worlds you could conquer. We measured ours by the number of worlds we could heal. The magnitude of what they were seeing crashed over the Techrans like a tidal wave. They had been wrong, catastrophically wrong about everything. Your options are simple, Song said at last. Return to Techran space and rebuild. Reconsider your values. Or remain and be unmade. A silence hung over the bridge like the heavy final moment before execution. Mork struggled with the words. Techrans did not retreat. It was antithetical to everything their civilization stood for. But this was not war. This was survival. Slowly, painfully, he turned to his communications officer. Transmit to all ships, he ordered. His voice shook, but only slightly. Full retreat. Immediate return to Techran space. No hostile actions. The order was given. Across the frozen Techran fleet, systems slowly flickered back to life. Weapons remained disabled, propulsion returned at partial strength, but it was enough. On the viewing screen, Song inclined her head slightly in acknowledgement. You have chosen wisely, she said. Humanity does not seek vengeance. Only understanding. The image dissolved into a cascade of golden particles, leaving behind only the cold, vast emptiness of space and the battered remnants of Techran pride. As the fleet limped away toward the hyperspace lanes, Admiral Mork allowed himself one final glance back toward where Earth had once hung in the void. It was no longer there, but he could feel it, vibrant, hidden, invincible. A slumbering god no longer asleep. And in the silent core of his being, Mork knew this encounter would be burned into the memory of his people for generations to come. They had come to conquer. Instead, they had been spared. The battered remnants of the Techran fleet emerged from hyperspace above Tekra Prime, their homeworld. A once proud bastion of imperial strength. Their arrival was supposed to be a triumphant return, heralding the subjugation of yet another upstart species. Instead, they returned defeated, humbled, and silent. The massive orbital fortresses of Tekra Prime scanned their identification signatures with an automated efficiency that now felt mocking. As Admiral Mork's flagship limped into dock, a tense message awaited him: immediate summons to the Grand Assembly. No congratulations. No welcome. Only judgment. The Grand Assembly chamber was a cavernous structure carved from a mountain of living rock. Thousands of Tekran leaders filled its concentric terraces, their armored forms gleaming under the harsh blue light. Supreme Commander Vrex presided at the summit, his carapace adorned with the gold-black insignias of the highest military authority. Mork entered alone, his exoskeleton dulled from exposure to the gravitational flux fields he had barely escaped. He approached the central dais with slow, deliberate steps, aware of the countless compound eyes fixed upon him. Supreme Commander Vrex rose to his full, towering height. Admiral Mork, his voice echoed through the chamber, amplified and sharpened. You stand accused of dereliction, cowardice, and the spreading of false intelligence. Your failure has endangered the Dominion. A hiss of anger and derision rippled through the assembly. Mork stood firm. He had known this would come. Yet he had made his choice aboard inevitable dominance, survival over pride, truth over delusion. I submit, Mork said, voice steady, that you have not been endangered by my actions, but by your ignorance. Outrage burst across the chamber like a storm. Undeterred, Mork activated a small device hidden in the folds of his battle harness. Holographic projections filled the air, the disappearing Earth, the frozen stars, the human armadas beyond comprehension. The recordings from his own ship's sensors. Unaltered. Undeniable. Gasps, clicks, and shrieks filled the assembly. This is not deception, Mork said, sweeping his claws to encompass the images. This is the truth of what we faced. Humanity is no longer what we thought. They are beyond us, not in numbers or brute force, but in mastery of existence itself. Supreme Commander Vrex's antennae quivered violently. They are still soft skins. Liars. Weaklings. No, Mork countered. They are architects of reality. They chose not to destroy us, though they could have, easily. They chose to offer peace. Vrex bared his fangs. Peace through humiliation is death. Peace through wisdom is survival, Mork answered coldly. Would you rather we trigger our extinction with arrogance? The chamber seethed with turmoil. Some of the older generals shifted uncomfortably, whispering among themselves. A few junior officers, those born long after the old wars, looked at the recordings with wide, fearful eyes. And far above, hidden behind observation screens, the civilian leaders of the Dominion watched in silence. Supreme Commander Vrex made his decision. You were relieved of command, he spat. You will be confined pending further investigation. Mork lowered his head, not in submission, but in grim acceptance. He had delivered the warning. What the Dominion chose to do with it was no longer in his hands. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, word of the Tekran fleet's failure spread like wildfire. At first, most civilizations scoffed. Propaganda, they said. Impossible tales meant to cover a cowardly retreat. But then came the recordings. The intercepted transmissions. The quiet withdrawal of Tekran expansion fleets from contested sectors. And most damning of all, the silence from Tekra Prime. No boasts of victory. No declarations of conquest. Just silence. Among the Vex crystalline collectives, analysts began quietly recalibrating their diplomatic algorithms to account for a new unknown superpower. The aquatic states of Lythian Prime opened secret channels to human outposts they had once ignored. Even the proud Spheric Empire, rivals to the Tekrans for millennia, ordered a classified study, contingency planning, human contact protocols. Small, seemingly innocuous human colonies found themselves receiving unusual visitors, scholars, merchants, diplomats under false flags, all attempting to understand the mystery. They found bustling towns, thriving trade hubs, and a curious, open people. But beneath the warmth and casual conversation, there was always something else. A quiet, watchful presence. Buildings that seemed simple but resisted all forms of scanning. Children playing games that mapped impossible quantum patterns. Old men tending gardens that contained plants never before cataloged by galactic botanists. Plants that responded to thought. It was as if humanity had grown roots deeper than time itself. In secret conclaves, powerful beings debated. Should they fear humanity's return to prominence? Should they seek alliance? Or was it already too late to choose? For as humanity began to move once more upon the galactic stage, it became clear to all. Earth had not survived the past 3,000 years by chance. It had prepared, and the age of naive empires was coming to an end. Across the galaxy, ancient tensions boiled toward eruption. While some civilizations quietly accepted the shifting winds, others, fueled by fear, pride, or desperation, sought to resist the inevitable. Meetings were held in hidden star bases. Conspiracies wove themselves between worlds, and clandestine alliances formed among races who had once warred against each other. They called it the Containment Pact. Officially, it did not exist, but whispers of it traveled on encrypted channels, on data crystals passed hand to hand in shadowed corridors, an unprecedented coalition of powers determined to limit humanity's influence before it grew beyond all control. At the heart of the pact was an audacious plan. If direct military confrontation was impossible, as the Tekran disaster had proven, then humanity must be destabilized from within. Sabotage, disinformation, incitement of rebellion among human colonies, technological theft, anything to fracture their unity before they could consolidate their newfound position. And so, the seeds of resistance were sown. It began subtly. Strange viruses targeted human quantum communication relays, crafted by some of the finest cybernetic minds of the Spheric Empire. Economic sabotage hit newly revitalized colonies in the Outer Arms, orchestrated by shadow agents of the Tkal cartel. False flag attacks blamed on human radicals erupted near neutral territories, designed to erode the fragile goodwill Earth was beginning to foster. But Earth did not respond with violence. Not at first. Instead, they watched. They listened. They learned. Within the hidden command chambers beneath Luna's surface, the heart of human defense intelligence, known only as the Aegis Corps, activated its most secret project, Protocol Cassandra. "Let them move first," said Director Elena Ross, the ageless head of Earth's deep defense operations, her voice calm as a still sea. "Let them show us the shape of their fear." Under Cassandra's watch, human operatives moved quietly across the stars, not with armies, but with ideas, not with weapons, but with understanding. Where the Containment Pact spread fear, humans offered knowledge. Where they sowed distrust, humans offered trust. Where they whispered division, humans sang of unity. And slowly, imperceptibly, the galaxy began to shift. Some among the pact saw the futility and defected, offering information in exchange for safety. Others, disillusioned, turned their efforts inward, abandoning the cause entirely. A few, the most dangerous, doubled down, driven by desperation. The final move came in the unlikeliest of places, the neutral world of Illyrian, a jewel of art and culture revered by all species. The Pact's agents planned an atrocity, an attack designed to frame humans as aggressors, to shatter their image of restraint once and for all. On the eve of the Great Convergence Festival, when dignitaries from every corner of the galaxy gathered to celebrate unity, the agents deployed. Silent gravitic mines, invisible to most detection methods, were planted along the primary transport hubs. Viral nanites, designed to cripple life support systems, were seeded into the atmospheric processors. And a false message was prepared, supposedly from Earth's own diplomats, claiming responsibility. The trap was flawless. Except it was already known. In the Grand Forum of Illyrian, as the gathered races celebrated under the glowing banners of peace, Ambassador Evelyn Kim stood once more, this time not in secret, but in full view of the galaxy. Her voice, amplified not just by technology, but by the weight of destiny itself, cut through the festivities like a blade. "Citizens of the galaxy," she began, her tone steady, "we bring no accusation today. We bring only truth." At her signal, shimmering projections appeared above the forum, live feeds showing the Containment Pact's agents caught in the act, their weapons disabled, their communications laid bare. The revelation was surgical, devastating. No shots were fired. No armies marched. Only the truth, delivered with the precision of a scalpel. Shockwaves tore through the diplomatic corps. Alliances fractured. Old hatreds flared, but also, astonishingly, hope ignited. For many saw, at last, the reality humanity had offered all along. Not dominance, not conquest, but partnership on terms of honesty, strength, and mutual respect. Evelyn Kim lowered her hand as the projections faded. "Humanity forgives," she said simply. "But we do not forget. Let us move forward, together, or apart. The choice is yours." And then, in an act that no strategist in the Pact had anticipated, humanity did something unheard of. They stepped back. Ships that had quietly held defensive positions withdrew to Earth's hidden domains. Human diplomats declined to impose sanctions or demands. No threats were made. The galaxy was left to decide for itself. It was a masterstroke. By choosing not to seize power when they could have, humanity demonstrated a strength that no weapon could match, the strength of restraint. And in the silent, odd aftermath, the course of history changed. Worlds once hostile sent envoys. Former enemies petitioned for cultural exchanges. Technological treaties were signed, not under duress, but in the spirit of true collaboration. And from the depths of obscurity, humanity rose, not as rulers, but as the quiet center of a new galactic dawn. Years passed, and with them, the galaxy itself seemed to exhale a breath it hadn't realized it had been holding for millennia. Gone were the whispered threats in shadowed rooms. Gone were the fleets of intimidation hovering at the edges of contested systems. Gone was the assumption, the old, arrogant certainty, that humanity could be controlled, limited, or dismissed. In their place came something new. Something fragile, but growing stronger with each passing cycle: trust. On the newly constructed Unity Spire, a vast station larger than any ever built before, floating serenely in neutral space, the leaders of thousands of worlds gathered. They came not out of fear, nor under compulsion. They came of their own will, drawn by the vision humanity had offered. A galaxy not of conquest, but of cooperation. Not of dominance, but of discovery. Not of fear, but of shared wonder at the endless stars. In the Spire's great conclave hall, beneath a soaring dome of transparent crystal through which the constellations shone like ancient watchers, Ambassador Evelyn Kim stood once more. This time, she was not alone. Beside her stood the delegates of Earth, scientists, artists, explorers, historians, not generals. Humanity had no need to parade soldiers or show its weapons. Its strength had already been proven, irrevocably. The assembly fell silent as Evelyn stepped forward, her simple navy blue uniform devoid of any grand decorations. Only a small pin glinted at her chest, a stylized image of a tree growing among stars, the new emblem of Earth's role in the galaxy. She spoke without notes, her voice clear, carrying across the vast hall. 3,000 years ago, humanity almost destroyed itself. We fought over dust, over illusions of power, over imagined differences. Her words were translated instantly into thousands of languages, resonating through speakers, holograms, and direct neural relays. We survived because we learned. We rebuilt not our cities first, but our hearts. We realized that strength does not come from fear, but from hope. Not from taking, but from giving. She paused, letting the truth settle like seeds into fertile soil. For centuries we watched. We listened. We grew, not to dominate, but to be ready. Ready for this moment. She lifted her hand, and a holographic representation of the Milky Way galaxy blossomed into being above the gathered delegates. Every star is a beginning. Every world is a song waiting to be sung. Alone, we are fleeting. Together, we are eternal. Around the hall, the representatives, some still wary, some hopeful, all deeply changed, listened. Among them sat Supreme Commander Vrex, now retired, his once proud armor dulled, yet his eyes sharper than ever. Beside him, Admiral Mork, reinstated and now an advocate for cautious wisdom among his people. The representatives of the Vex crystalline collective shimmered subtly in agreement. The aquatic diplomats of Lythian Prime nodded with slow, deliberate grace. Even the Spheric, who had once schemed the Containment Pact, had sent their brightest scholars, openly, humbly. Humanity had not conquered. It had inspired. And the galaxy, battered, divided, exhausted by cycles of war, was ready, desperately ready, for something new. Evelyn's voice softened. We offer partnership. We offer knowledge. We offer ourselves as students of the stars, as stewards of hope. Above the galaxy map, a new symbol formed, not a flag, but a constellation, a loose gathering of stars, different, distant, yet connected by threads of golden light. The choice is yours, Evelyn said simply. But know this, whatever path you walk, you will not walk it alone. Silence. Then, slowly, one by one, delegates stood. Some bowed. Some saluted. Some placed their hands, or tentacles, or energy forms, over their hearts. And in that moment, without formal declaration or written treaty, a new era was born. An era not of Earth's domination, but of humanity's quiet leadership. An era where strength meant uplifting the weak. Where knowledge meant freeing the mind, not enslaving it. Where laughter, that absurd, defiant human laughter, echoed among the stars as the greatest weapon ever devised. From the ancient cradle of Earth, from the hidden vaults of Luna, from the gardens blooming on terraformed moons and the deep archives spun among dark matter currents, humanity moved forward. Not to conquer, but to create. The galaxy vast, wild, beautiful beyond comprehension, awaited. And together, they would journey into it. Not as enemies, not as rulers and ruled, but as dreamers, as builders, as friends, as one. The end.